Pretty big week, Derek Togerson. Pretty big week ahead of the San Diego Padres. Maybe not the weekend that many hoped for. No champagne celebration in the clubhouse. The party a bit more subdued than maybe we hoped at Petco Park on Sunday, but we could make up for it in the coming week, given all that is at stake. How are you, Derek? You were there yesterday. What were the vibes like?
Business-like. It was, hey, keep going, because and Joe Musgrove told me this on Monday before the Astro series. Like, we're looking at the division. That was before they went 5-1 at home. We're kind of like, okay, you guys can probably win this homestand. 4-2 would be great. Didn't think the Dodgers would struggle just a little bit with the the Marlins and then the Rockies. But what do you know? He was right. Now the Padres actually control whether or not they win the division, going up trying to sweep LA. So yeah, they were like, you know what? We're not in the playoffs yet. We just have a chance. We're going to try and win the division. It was still very, very businesslike with 6 games left. It was interesting.
Padres control it, but the Dodgers also control it. So we'll see who asserts their control over the next few days in LA. But businesslike is fitting because that's kind of been their approach throughout the season. And so we will talk about that. We'll talk about what we saw over the weekend and obviously everything that is ahead of the club in the final week of the regular season as they head to LA and then Arizona. Thanks to OG's, the sponsor of the On Friar podcast, for all they do for On Friar and the NBC 7 sports team. If you're looking for a place to catch a game, whether it's the Padres, as they are now on the road, perhaps in the postseason, if you can't make it on the road or to Petco Park, OG's is the place to do that. College football Saturdays, NFL as well. Tons of TVs, great menu. They're constantly adding specials and new menu items, and they've got an awesome beer list. So appreciate OG's and all they do for us, and make sure you hit up OG's whenever you need a good meal or want to catch a good game or a little bit of both. Without further ado, the walk-up music. It is the On Friar podcast brought to you by NBC 7. Greetings to you. Greetings to Gustavo already in the chat. Let's go, fellas. Good afternoon. Good afternoon to you, Gustavo. Good afternoon to you, Derek Togerson. As we briefly discussed, you were there Sunday, Petco Park. Again, not exactly what we were hoping for. But
you knew that the Braves were not going to drop 2 out of 3 to the Marlins. I mean, we kind of saw this come. We were hoping, but not expecting.
Yeah. And so, yeah, things played out the way that they did. But look, you win a game and you're in. And so it's not, they handled their business. Like you referenced, you're having to rely on some other teams and you can't guarantee how that's going to go. But the Padres continue to play really, really well at a very good time. And, maybe there's a little more theatrics than you would have hoped against a historically bad baseball team. But that's how the game goes. And they continue to find ways to get wins. Curious, just kind of, Derek, with you, like, what's your just general broad 30,000 foot view on the week ahead of the club?
It's 6 more games. It just is what it is. I'm channeling Manny Machado here. It's just, we just got to go keep playing baseball. Let the chips fall where they may. And, you got not why change anything now? Why look ahead? Why just enjoy this and then go play ball? I'm going to pack my glove and my cleats and my uniform and my bats, and I'm going to go up there and just play base. That's how Manny looks at it, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, in this case, it probably makes sense because they haven't secured the playoff spot yet. It's a matter of if, not when. There's no chance they lose 6 straight games down the stretch. The whole sweep of the Dodgers thing, if you break it down position by position, the Padres probably have the personnel edge, given the fact the Dodgers are so beat up, especially in the starting rotation right now. But they have Shohei Ohtani and Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman. They have it's very difficult to sweep the Dodgers, especially in their ballpark. So while, yes, we can sit here and dream on winning the division, that would be amazing. I mean, that would be one of those, like, this is the greatest weeks in the history of Padres baseball, if that does in fact come to fruition. So am I putting it past it? No. Am I more than anticipating they're going to be hosting a wild card series next year? That's probably more likely where we're sitting here. But other than that, this is still a very nice spot to be in.
It's a great spot to be in, and you might want to take the business-like approach. I'm going to take a different approach because we can. Like you said, this has if everything goes their way, this could be like the greatest week the Padres ever had. I'd be curious, like, have they ever had a week in the regular season or a final week in the regular season where there's more at stake than there is right now? Because there is a division. You got to get into the playoffs. I mean, anytime you are in the playoff bubble, like, that's a huge week because the nature of baseball is you get in and anything can happen. So to a degree, the rest is kind of semantics, but have they had a week where they can win the division? We know they haven't done that since 2006. They are
2010, last week of the year, lost the last game of the season to the Giants. They had to sweep the Giants to win the division. They didn't. They won the first two, lost the last one. And then the Giants and Bruce Bochy go on to win their first of 3 World Series in 5 years. That's the last time it happened. Also, the last time they won 90 games. So 2010's got a lot of parallels here.
2010's got a lot of parallels. Were they within 2 games or 3 games of the best team in the National League that year? Of the top seed in the National League that year. We're talking like real big long shots here, but like, that's there, potentially if the Phillies completely fall apart, if the Dodgers, obviously the Padres can play a role in that. But if somehow miraculously the Phillies go 2-4 against the Cubs and against the Nats, and the Padres go 5-1.
Stop right there. Just stop.
No, I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to stop. This is what a podcast is for, Derek. We don't have to be serious. We don't have to take Manny Machado's. No. We don't have to take Manny Machado's cues here. I don't play for the team. Okay. So let me have some fun here.
Okay.
If they go 2-4 as opposed to 5-1, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but it's cool that we can at least discuss this, because when have we ever been able to have this conversation before? That gets them to 95 wins. The Phillies at 94. Obviously, the Phillies have the tiebreaker. So 95-95 advantage Philly. They have the tiebreaker over LA. So if it's a split, we'll see what happens. But I just think it's fun and kind of cool, even if it's probably not going to happen. And maybe Fangraphs will tell us what the likelihood of this is, that we can at least kind of squint and see, if things drastically break in their favor, something kind of incredible could happen.
Okay, well, I won't be at work next week because I'm going to win the Powerball.
Hey, people buy tickets. People buy tickets, Derek. What happens when the Powerball's at 400 billion? People buy tickets. That's all I'm doing. I'm buying a ticket. That's it.
Yeah, but you're talking about the Phillies losing 2 consecutive series to the Cubs and the Nationals.
I'm just saying.
The Cubs and the Nationals. It's like, that would be great. Sure. That's one of those, like, okay, it's not going to happen, right? It's not going to. And I'm even going to tell you right now, I will say the same thing now. It's even been dreaming saying they have a chance to sweep the Dodgers, because I've been saying this the entire season. They're not going to catch the Dodgers in the division. Who is Buzz Killington?
You are, apparently, Derek.
It's okay. Yeah. But there's just a shade of reality that has to creep in at some point, right?
There's no
like,
fun.
are all these things
no
possible?
Fun.
Yes,
Reality's
they're
no
possible.
Fun.
Mathematically, they're possible. Maybe even in some alternate bizarro world, this is how things go down. I'm trying to look at this more of, what are we actually doing here? What do we actually say? How are we setting up the postseason rotation? You probably have to play a wild card series. Beating the Dodgers, yes, it's possible. They're going to get in. Okay. Sweeping the Dodgers in LA, especially with the way that Shohei Ohtani is swinging the bat right now, it's such a tall order. It is such a tall order. Actually, if they do it, it might be the best series they've ever played. Like this, it's going to take amazing baseball 3 straight days, which, again, this team is capable of doing this. They're more than capable of doing this. I'm not going to make my money predicting the downfall of the talented Dodgers. That sounds stupid to me. So yes, can it happen? Absolutely, it can happen. But then, so they even say they do that, then you're talking about getting the number 1 seed over the Phillies, who have to drop 2 straight series of the Cubs and the terrible Nationals, who are sending casino-loving all-stars down to the minor leagues. Like this, the Nationals are completely falling apart and giving up on the rest of the season. That I just don't see that part of it. That's where it jumps the shark. You just went Fonzie on me.
That's fine. That's what being a fan is. I can go Fonzie on you. It's no sweat off my back. I'm not the one having to win games. I'm just here talking about what is still mathematically a possibility. Not saying it's a likelihood, not saying it's going to happen, but again, when in the Padres history, they've never been the top seed in the National League. I went back and looked at the years when they won a division, and they have seldom been remotely close to being the top seed in the National League. And here they are, 2 games back of the Phillies that look like maybe the likeliest team because of the schedule you just laid out to get the top seed in the National League and have the National League run through Citizens Bank Park. Just for them to be in this position, I find it fun. Are you probably right in that we're looking in all likelihood at the Padres playing in and potentially hosting a wild card series? Absolutely. I'm not going to punt on the possibility of them sweeping the Dodgers at this point. I haven't had a chance to sit there and watch. What's the dude's name? Landon Knack. Have you dug up any Landon Knack film yet?
I've seen him throw, yeah.
Yeah, ERA is pretty solid for a young guy, and that seems to be
He's a 27-year-old rookie. He's not a young guy.
He's young guy.
He's pressed into duty because of all the injuries that they've had. He's shown flashes of being really good, but he's wildly inconsistent.
Young guy in terms of experience, but that's like oddly like a doomsday situation for the Padres. Some guy you've never heard of that maybe shouldn't be there pitching against the Padres in a big game, because there's been so many examples of those guys shoving more than maybe they should.
Yeah. Now let me ask you this, Darnay: if they do win the division, which comes with the first round bye, one of the top 2 seeds, is that even a good idea?
And that is a great question to ask, because we've talked about how, that bye hasn't necessarily gone in favor of the teams that have received. Now, Houston's been an exception in the past.
The exception in the past. No other team that has had a first round bye has gone to the World Series. Only one other than Houston has even gotten out of the division series, and none of them in the National League. The Dodgers and Braves have had it both years, and they both got knocked out in the division series.
That's a fair question. And I cause for concerns, probably putting it a little bit too strongly, but it's something that's got to enter your mind as you kind of figure out, okay, what the postseason looks like, who's going to be where, who gets the bye, and if San Diego's in that conversation. Do you want to run the risk of halting the momentum that this team has generated? And we'll see what happens this week. But the last couple of weeks, I guess last week and a half since things have tightened up, they've played really, really good baseball. And do you want to run the risk of compromising that? I will say, like, when did they really get hot? It was after the All-Star break. They dropped the first game against Cleveland and then went on an absolute tear. And so you're looking at roughly the same, maybe a little bit longer, roughly the same amount of time. So, they've got some guys that have been banged up, like a little rest. Could that be the worst thing? I don't know.
That's a horrible comparison, though, Darnay. And why is it a horrible comparison?
Go ahead.
Because nobody else is playing during the All-Star break either. In this scenario, you've got other teams who are playing and keeping their timing and keeping their momentum. It's everybody takes 4 days off in the All-Star break. Only 2 teams in the National League take time off in this situation. So when you've got other teams who are hot and continuing to play and keeping that rhythm, and then you take a week off, 5-6 days off, that's a huge difference.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a great point. So I don't even know. I mean, you're right. I don't know that's a good idea. It would be a great feather in their cap, but as you mentioned, based on recent history, being in the wild card seems preferable for whatever reason. So I don't know. I think, again, if you have a chance to win the division, and you can let me know what the guys had to say in the clubhouse, and what the general tone has been, in that regard. You mentioned Joe. I mean, obviously Joe's got like the history, a more intimate understanding of what it would mean to the city and to the franchise.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think if you have a chance to win the division, like, you go out and win the division. And I think, like, given Mike Schilt's approach, like, I would be surprised if somebody who's preached like competition, grinding, work hard, treat every game the same way with the same amount of seriousness, if all of a sudden he'd be like, okay, let's throttle back because we don't want it. we don't want to win the division. We don't want to be, we don't want to have to go through that bye. That would seem a little unshilty to me, but
Oh, they're not
maybe
going
I'm
to
wrong.
stop trying. There's no question about that. I'm saying if it doesn't play out that way, would it be such a bad thing?
No. I think no, because I mean, look, again, winning the division is cool, great feather in the cap, awesome accomplishment, have it done in a long time, but certainly not the end of the world. And maybe in a sense, that's what makes this format good and exciting, is like you don't necessarily feel like you lose anything by missing out on one of those top two seeds, and it might actually be a benefit to do that.
The history has shown that it can absolutely be a benefit. Plus, with this Padres team, it might even be, and this is going to be weird to say, so follow me here, they might actually be better served playing a wild card series, right? We need to, by the way, guys in the clubhouse, you mentioned that they all locked in on winning the division because they're competitors. You want to win every game you play. You win every game you play, you win the division. That's just how they're wired. That's what they're shooting for. Fantastic. But with the way their starting rotation is right now and how much depth they have in it, the killer for them in 2022 was the depth in the rotation. Clevenger was a shot fighter, and Manaea was just in a slump. They had no more arms by the time they got to the National League Championship Series. This year, they have stupid depth in the rotation. Even Martin Perez has pitched to a 2.81 ERA since he came over from Pittsburgh. He's reborn back to his former all-star looking self. He looks amazing. That's a guy you can count on in the postseason. Michael King, a guy who's one of the hottest pitchers in baseball right now, might be the guy who's the odd man out. All right. So if you go through the division series, all right, so if you go through the wild card series, let's say it lines up where you need to have King start on Sunday, and then you've got, Cease, Musgrove, Darvish if necessary. Well, let's say you have to go through all three games in the wild card like they did in 22 in New York, and you win that. Well, then you've got Michael King to start game one. I guess in the division series last year against the Dodgers, it was Clevenger who had to start game one, and he had to go again. Well, now you've got King, and then you go right back to Cease. So now their number one starters going against King. Their number 2 and 3 starters going against your numbers 1 and 2 starters as you're going through the division series. So it actually might line up helping you because now you've got guys who can match up with an ace. I would throw Michael King out there against Zach Wheeler and think I have a pretty decent shot to win a baseball game. But then you've got much more depth moving forward because now here comes the top of your rotation against the bottom of the other team's rotation. It might actually, and that might be why these teams are winning these series, because they come in and they still maybe one guy off the back end, and then bam, here comes their 1, 2, 3 versus the 2, 3, 4, and that's how they go and win the series. It usually has been 4 or 5 games. It hasn't been a 3-game sweep in the division series. So that might be the secret sauce here. Maybe it's Milwaukee who's in the best possible situation because they get the 3 seed, which means they get home field, they're a division champion, but they also don't have to take those 2 weeks off. So I'm very, very curious to see how this plays out. And if we do maybe start to see a pattern forming here with teams trying to stay away from having the best record in the National League or the top 2 because it just doesn't work out.
No, it hasn't. Alfredo chiming in, by the way, no team is going to win 100 games this season.
Which is weird because you got a team that's going to lose 125.
So you think it would have to balance out somewhere?
Yeah, exactly. You figure if there's one that bad, just the yin and the yang, how math works out, you'd have somebody way down here, have somebody way up here too, but it just didn't work out though. Much more parity in baseball this year.
Yeah, I mean, Houston's sitting there at 85 wins, Yankees at 92, Orioles have cooled off. Obviously the Dodgers not quite as daunting as they had been, obviously Ohtani and Betts and those guys, but maybe top to bottom. Phillies looked like they'd be on pace for 100 wins at one point. They cooled off. So
Bryce Harper didn't hit a home run for a month.
I mean, it's kind of nice. I mean, I'm not mad at having some like historically great team or some team that's running away from it, because I mean, it allows us to have conversations like these where there's like so many different possible permutations of this rather than just like it being a given that the Dodgers are going to be the top seed in like early August. So I kind of prefer this. I find it interesting. Lauren chiming in. This is the house money week. Pod's going to playoffs, something we didn't consider seriously early on.
I did. I had them in 89 wins the whole season, Lauren.
Now they have a chance to win the division at best and worst, secure a home series for the wild card. I mean, I do think people thought they were going. I think people were fair to wonder about them the first half of the season when they're just kind of straddling 500. Like you figured it had to go one way or another at some point, and then since the wild card, they've gone nuts. It is crazy. They went from 50-50 to 90-66.
That's good.
That's bananas.
It's 24 games over 500. That's why they have the best record in Major League Baseball since the start of July. I think the All-Star break started July.
I think it goes even further.
Even deeper. Actually, it goes even deeper. That goes into June.
It's like May or something. Yeah, it's wild.
Which is also crazy when you think that for the vast majority of that time, they didn't have Yu Darvish, Joe Musgrove, or Fernando Tatis Jr. Like that's the wild thing here. Like this team right now, and also Donovan Solano and David Peralta were picked up in May, and they kind of worked their way into the rotation. And now you know exactly how to deploy those two guys. Like it's this team now, especially after they remade their bullpen. And by the way, not just with the trades, but the emergence of Jeremiah Estrada as a reliable, high leverage late inning guy. This is from where they were April, even into May. This is not the same team. Jackson Merrill arrived during that time. We realized that Jurickson Profar was on a flash in the pan early in there. He has now gotten hot again at the end of the season. This team, Manny Machado was healthy. He wasn't healthy for 2 months. This team is so different now than it was for those first 2 months of the year, and all in a good way. It's like nothing is taken a step back. It's literally all in a good way, except maybe the health of Luis Ariza's knee. That might be the only thing that we're dealing with. Of like this team is better top to bottom than they were when they got to that 45 and 40, 50, 50, whatever it was. They're better in every single capacity than they were when this all started. It's just astonishing what they've been able to do. And I got to give AJ Preller all kinds of credit for how he put this roster together. I criticized the hell out of him for roster construction because he saw talent, but not chemistry and how pieces fit together as humans. This year, I have not seen a better chemistry in that clubhouse maybe ever in the Padres clubhouse. It's fantastic how he's put all these personalities together into one. I don't want to lay it all on Juan Soto and Bob Melvin, and Blake Snell and Josh Hader. Those mercenaries are gone, and guys who came in here who are actual good teammates are now here. It's a completely different team, exponentially better than they were a year ago. So AJ gets all the credit in the world for figuring that part of it out.
Am I wrong in saying that I don't know if Blake Snell deserves to belong in the same group as
Yes,
Soto
he
and
does.
Hader?
He's a mercenary. He cares about money, and that's it. We've talked about this.
I think he was a good teammate, though.
How?
I mean, I just don't think he was a bad, in terms of being supportive of his guys and getting along with the guys, just that sort of thing. I get what you're saying in terms of the money. He's a Boris client. Obviously, that fueled that decision. And I don't know. You might be right. I'm just putting it out there. But at some point, I feel like we just might need to dedicate an entire episode to what AJ Preller did, maybe in the offseason or something like that.
Yeah.
Just in terms of, because he did take so much heat and, probably rightly so. But he's seemingly hit on every single, can you think of one dud of a move just off the top of your head? I mean, from since the season started, one big move, one significant decision that just kind of went haywire, because it wouldn't be hard to think of examples from previous seasons. But the fact that I can't really just off the top of my head think of one that went sideways on them, that in and of itself is telling. Obviously they were right in being aggressive with Jackson Merrill. You mentioned the complementary pieces have been, perfect fits and have not just fit in and done their part, but elevated the team in some senses. And then being aggressive and getting a rise, getting Cease before anybody else is really shopping for them. You wouldn't have gotten them, at the deadline, or if you did, you would have paid, a lot more than you paid when you did get them. So there's many reasons, or many things that you can point to for how this has been, an AJ Preller masterclass of sorts, coming off of what was a bit of a dud in 2023.
Only one I could think of is handing the starting catcher job to Luis Campusano for so long. That was really the one. And that's one of those, like, you can't blame him. It just didn't work out. And then it was a smart decision to send him down and bring up Elias Diaz, who hit his first home run. It was an absolute missile a couple nights ago. And, oh, by the way, he also hit another ball well over 100 miles an hour that was caught for an out.
Yeah.
The stuff behind the plate might be the place you can nitpick it on. That's really it.
But I mean, Kyle Higashioka was like, you couldn't have him in the lineup the first month or two of the season. It wasn't until
take him out of the lineup for the next 2 months.
Then you couldn't take him out of the lineup. So, yeah. But I mean, if that's what you're pointing to, it's just another example of just how on point Preller has been. And
it's picking nits at that point.
Yeah. Another thing that you're going to roll your eyes at until they hit the back of the room is, when Tatis was down, there is this segment of the fan base that is like, is this team better without Fernando Tatis Jr.? Do the guys get along a little bit better? Is there if it's a chemistry thing or this or that? And I mean, to Tatis's credit, and I never really thought that was the case. I always thought that was a little bit of a silly thing to say. But to Tatis's credit, he has quieted that discussion in a considerable manner since his first game back against Detroit. Goes 0 for 4. After that game, 16 games, hitting .313 with a .672 slug, .995 OPS, 6 homers, 12 RBIs. He has been phenomenal. And
first couple of walk-offs of his career. Yeah, he's doing it in big spots too.
Pinch hit homer. He hadn't had a pinch hit homer in his career.
He hadn't pinch hit much in his career.
He hadn't pinch hit much in his career. That is very true. And he's had fast starts before coming off injuries. It wasn't necessarily the case last year. Now he's coming off of 18 months, so kind of a different story. So it was fair to wonder, okay, what's it going to look like with a month left to play? And he's been, pretty much every bit of Fernando Tatis Jr., which bodes very well given where they are and what's at stake moving ahead.
I can see where people would think that because, and we've talked about this before too, he's a big personality. But he's a big personality in both ways. When things are going well, he buoys the entire clubhouse. When things are going poorly, he's this black cloud over everything as he's trying so hard to help his teammates out. I think he's been able to find a little more even keel this year. And I think Jackson Merrill might be helping him with that because Jackson, as you and Jay's the same dude every day. I even talked to him on Friday. He was just like, the 0 for 19s, the 0 for 20s, whatever it is. I just keep out there and swing the bat. I know it's going to turn around. He's just so matter of fact about it because he understands the game of baseball and the ebbs and the flows and the ups and downs. And the fact that he's probably the only guy in that clubhouse who can make Toddy feel old. I think Tatis kind of looked at him and gone like, this kid's phenomenal. And they're both phenoms, they hang out, they chat, they talk, they help each other. They support one another. So I think Jackson's really rubbed off on Todd, where Toddy's kind of really, really helped him with the transition from shortstop to the outfield. He was an invaluable resource defensively for Jackson Merrill. And Jackson said, he's taught me a ton about this. I think it goes the other way too, where Toddy's looking at him going, maybe I could take a little bit of that approach with me and be like, I know I'm ungodly talented. In fact, he even told us on Friday that he thinks he can be a 50-50 guy if he can stay healthy. He knows he's that talented, talking about the Ohtani thing. So if he can just keep that even keel approach more often and take it through an entire season and stay healthy, maybe they really help each other. And then that good symbiotic relationship. I think Jackson Merrill's done a ton to help out Tatis with the extreme highs and extreme lows of the personality that he has.
Yeah, that's a great point. Only a couple minutes before we gotta dip. Any other final thoughts? Anything else that you heard from the clubhouse that has resonated with you? Just kind of looking ahead to this week.
They know that the Dodgers are very good, and they don't fear the Dodgers one bit. They say the prevailing attitude was, if you want to get to the top, you got to go through the best. And those guys have been the best, and we're going to go up there and show them that we're going to go toe to toe with them. So it was just a really, really nice attitude, I think, just overall in the clubhouse of, we're not underestimating these guys. We're also not putting them on a pedestal, which is something that I think Andy Green and Jace Tingler, even, and maybe even a little bit of Bob Melvin would do, where it was like, look at they got Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman are the second and third best players on that team. And they're both going to go to the Hall of Fame, probably on the first ballot. So it's like you look at that and you just kind of go, yeah, okay, they got some guys. Guess what? We got a lot of guys too. And we might have even more guys than they do. So let's go out there and just have fun playing the game. And that's been the overriding thing of the whole year. If I can just crystallize it, is we're going to go have fun playing a baseball game with my buddies, and we're going to figure out where it stands after 9 innings.
And they're going to sweep the Dodgers, Derek.
I wouldn't put it past them. I'm not going to predict it, but I wouldn't put it past you. If we're sitting here on Thursday or on Friday morning and you told me the Padres swept the Dodgers or the Dodgers swept the Padres, I'd be like, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fun to imagine. It's fun to imagine. Should we put like a friendly wager on this? Do you want to put like a burrito or a pizza or something on it? I don't know.
You're gonna say sweep?
Well, do you want to just do?
Now you're hedging your bet. You talk a big game, Darnay.
No, I'm just saying, do you want to go back to the original from a few episodes ago and just do the division?
Oh, if the Padres win the division or not?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not going to win the division.
What do you want to put on it?
And basically at this point, I can't back off that because I've said it for literally 156 games.
I don't bet money. I only bet food and drink. So what do you want to bet?
What do you want to do? A burrito?
Do a burrito?
Okay, burrito bet.
Burrito. You're all witness.
There you go. Yeah. Okay. And there you go. Lauren gets final say. Burrito bet, baby.
Burrito bet, baby.
Look, and by the way, Lauren also knows what it's like when you bet burritos with me.
There's no better bet than a burrito bet. Somebody needs to tell CJ Abrams, stick to betting burritos, young man. You've got a bright future ahead of you. Just bet burritos. It's never going to sting. Also, never going to get you in trouble.
Yeah, if you get plus, I mean, if you're walking out of the place at 8 o'clock in the morning, it's just a breakfast burrito.
What do you need? You need a burrito. All right. This was a pleasure. Excited to see what unfolds and hopefully excited to eat a burrito at the end of the week. Thank you, Derek. Thanks everybody for watching and listening. And we will be with you at some point. I think this week we need to discuss our plans for the postseason, but you'll have more episodes of On Friar coming on to your YouTube playlist and into your podcast app in the near future. I can assure you of that. We'll see you next time.